Okay, well, you might consider turning the wax patterns rather than moulding them, and one of the reasons is that it's fun to do. Another reason is that it's a cheap way of recycling your old wax, your misruns from moulding the old sprues, and allowing you to buy someone else's recycled wax, which doesn't come in very convenient lumps, and using kitchenware, a silicone rubber mould, gives you a nice supply of similar wax type tartlets, which will allow you to go from serviette rings down to finger rings once you can hold them in your lathe. The lathe isn't a proper lathe, it isn't a real lathe, it's a DIY wax only job. It's an adaptation of a grinder, which, because I like these fine brass wire brushes, I'd always have a bob available, and by getting the woodworkers version, which would normally have a large slow running wheel, you can see it's a 22:1 reduction from the normal grinding speed down to this speed, which you can see there's a nice steady speed, and it cuts very nicely. The wax cuts very nicely at that speed. We've fitted a chuck enabling mandrels and a faceplate to hold the wax for turning via woodworking tools, even very cheap little carving tools which wouldn't really be up to turning. They turn wax a treat. All these things come sharp, and wax is such an easy material to turn that if they come sharp, they stay sharp for years. So that you don't need to be an engineer to do this. You need to get the wax actually into rotation, and one way is to warm up the faceplate and melt the tartlet onto the faceplate, so you've got a nice big area of molten wax holding it on once it's cooled down, and that won't come off under normal turning. This fellow was warmed up and the wax stuck on. This one's been stuck on the other way round. Another way of putting the wax on is to use a male mandrel, and you can put your wax in your wax ladle, keep it pretty well topped up, tip it up like that so it's about flush on the back there, and then anoint the mandrel with a layer of molten wax. Let it cool down and keep repeating that for the number of times required to give you the thickness of wax that you want. If you've made the mandrel diameter the inside diameter of the ring size, then the thing's already sized for you, and you've actually moulded the size in one go, which is very convenient. If you buy your wax, as this is very good quality wax, this is ring wax, then you can have a chuck which is just an interference fit on this. You warm the chuck up and then you push that in there. You've got a length probably as much as that sticking out for you to turn whatever it is, probably your ring. So an external chuck, an internal sized mandrel, or a faceplate. If you've got access to an ordinary lathe, then you can cast the wax into a cardboard tube, just the inside of a loo roll there, get a noggin of wax, and then turn it in your lathe to give you a spigot which will go straight into the chuck. That's the lathe. The wax, the tools can be very simple, they're very effective. I like using these flat wood bits. I use them in pairs. As it comes, just straight as it comes, the point when this is brought round to the swings round to the front of the machine like this at the right height, so that you can pick the centre of the work and plough straight in, and this design of point self-centres on the centre of the work, and I've got them in pairs. This one is that with the point ground off and some clearance on the front, and that will allow you to finish the bore of the ring to the size that you've sussed by trying it with your caliper. DIY lathe. Wax you've already got. You'll need a little faceplate which can be improvised from anything that's approximately that shape, and very cheap wood bits.